Hi class, so today this video is going to continue our instructions on how to create APA citations. Specifically today we're going to look at creating citations for articles, particularly those coming out of academic journals. So looking at our Purdue OWL website, if you scroll down here you get your menu on the left and you get this reference list, articles and periodicals. And so this is where you're going to find that formatting directions for how to list this. My experience with students and trying to cite journal articles is their struggle isn't with the citation formatting, it's really with finding that bibliographic info on the page. So going back to our videos from a week or so ago about how to identify bibliographic info for journal articles, particularly the difference between the journal title and the library database or vendor website, that's what really kind of confuses some students with this. But the basic format is similar to a book, starting off with your author or a list of authors. Remember, if you are citing multiple authors, you have to list up to 20 authors for APA 7th edition. You're then going next with the year in parentheses, and articles, just like books, do only require you typically to include the year. You don't need a month and a day for most articles. There are a few exceptions to that, and I'm going to talk about those later in the video. Next, you're getting the title of the article, next the title of the periodical or journal title, followed by the volume, the issue number in parentheses, then the page numbers of that particular article. So it's not just good enough you're giving me the title of the article and the journal title. It wants to know which specific volume, issue, and page numbers that article is found on. And then finally, you close out with this DOI hyperlink if you have it. DOIs, I think I talked about it with a bibliographic info, are something really specific to academic journal articles. They can have DOI numbers for print journals, but not every academic journal is going to have a DOI number. If you have a DOI, include it. If you don't, you do want to look at the stable URL, particularly if it's coming out of a library database. And so we're going to show you that a little bit today. But you're seeing you have these instructions for article in a print journal versus article in electronic. Print journals can sometimes, particularly for peer-reviewed research, have DOI numbers. If you have it, you want to include it. They are giving you this note that their example doesn't have a DOI, so that's why it's not included there. But if it did have one, you'd want to include that. If you're looking at an electronic article that doesn't have a DOI, that if it does, you list it. If it doesn't, they're suggesting you take the stable URL. And this is a little bit of a change from the 6th edition. So 7th edition does want that stable URL if you have one. If you don't, that is when you want to leave it out. So if you don't have a piece of info, you can leave it out, but you want to make sure you don't have that information before you do so. So looking at some examples of this, all right. If you are creating a citation for this article, Cities Lead the Way, most of the information you're looking at is up here in the top of this page here. So you're looking at all this bibliographic info here. So creating another little page where we're going to do some examples today. So first things first is that authors. And so once again, I'm going to not click on things, but we're going to highlight it and copy and paste so I can save a little bit of time. You don't have to do this, but this is typically how I do. And then I want to keep the text only, so I'm not taking the hyperlinks, I'm not taking the formatting, but I do need to go back and edit this. So remember, we're doing last names, first initials, followed by a comma, not a semicolon. And also remember that if you're getting middle initials in the publication and the published article, you do want to include those as well. And then we put an ampersand before our last author. So you have Rosenwig, Selecki, Hammer, and Mehrotra. And then that is your author list. So next we're going to look at the date. And so you're seeing this one's giving you a complete date. You do not have to include that for academic journal articles, particularly if you're getting a volume and an issue number. Sometimes it's okay to include the month if you don't have an issue number. There are certain journals that they don't provide them with issue numbers, they're volumes only, and then they give you the month instead. If it has an issue number, that's more than enough info to identify it. You don't need the exact date, so we are just going to take that 2010. And just like books, dates and journal articles go in parentheses. And remember that closed parentheses is followed by a period. Next, we're going to pull the article title. Copy, paste that. And we're going to keep the text only, so we're keeping it in the same font and formatting as before. Period at the end of the article title. Now, this is where lots of times you need to, once again, look at your capitalization. So remember, article titles are capitalized like book titles, that only the first word of the title, a subtitle, and any proper nouns are included in that. So cities is correctly capitalized. Everything else is not a proper noun, so it is lowercase. So this is correct. Sometimes it's correct. Most of the time you do have to do some formatting. Next, what is coming up is this journal title. And the journal title for this one is Nature. This is where students sometimes get confused that you're looking for the journal title. Typically, your journal title is going to come on the page next to your volume and issue and page numbers and date. So where you're getting that info is typically your journal title. ProQuest is not the journal title. That is the database name, company that is providing you with access to this journal. Another thing you don't need to include is London. ProQuest in particular has a habit of including the location that the journal headquarters is located. So it's giving you that publishing physical location. You don't need that for APA. So this is information that if you were citing from this page, you do want to leave out, but we want to include nature. And journal titles, like book titles, are italicized. So put that in italics. And if we go back and look at our formatting, you will notice that after the title of the periodical or journal, it's followed by a comma. Followed by a comma because this is not the end of the journal info. So remember, periods end a sentence, they end the content. So you get author, period, date, period, article title, period. You're getting journal title, comma, because you have more journal info to follow it. So you're not going to get a period until after all that page number, volume, and issue information. So we are looking for our volume and issue. So it's volume 467, issue 77318. And how you list that in APA is, you remember the numbers you're going to list. All right, so volume and issue in APA do not come with the volume and issue abbreviations in front of them. You include that sometimes in MLA in Chicago. APA does not use those. What they do instead is just put the volume followed immediately by the issue in parentheses. There is no space in between them. They're right up next to each other. Another different quirk about APA is that the volume number is italicized, but the issue number is not. So in APA article citations, journal title and volume number are always italicized. Issue number is not. This is something you do want to remember. Lots of professors will correctly correct you if you're not putting that volume number in italics. Then finally, we're wrapping this up with the page numbers. So it's this page 909 to page 911. That's what that 11 means, that they're just abbreviating that. If you did not have the complete page range up here, that is just giving you one page. Sometimes ProQuest does that occasionally. Other journal databases do that occasionally, that they'll tell you the page it starts on, but not the page it ends on. For APA, you have to have the complete page range. So if you don't get the complete page range up here, you can always look at the PDF full text if you have access to one. And let that load, and you look at what page is this starting on. So it's starting on page 909 and then ends on page 911. So you do want to include that. And you would not use that formatting abbreviation that ProQuest did. You want to list out the full number. Go ahead and put that 909-911. Then finally, period at the end, and that completes your journal info. So period after the page numbers. You also don't include the abbreviation P for page numbers and journal articles. Anytime you're seeing that range of numbers that you're getting a dash in between it, that's always going to be your page numbers. It's always going to follow your volume and issue. So no abbreviation of P or double P or PG before your page numbers with journal articles specifically. And then finally, we want that DOI number if we have one. And so this is one that if it does not list it up at the top, sometimes you get it on the PDF itself. One other place, if you're not seeing it, to look is the abstract and details section. So if they're going to have a DOI number, it'll typically be listed somewhere in here saying saying a DOI is one of these numbers. I am not seeing that here. So looking back at our instructions, if you are looking at an electronic journal and you don't have a DOI, you do want to see if you have a stable URL. So this one does have a stable URL. Sometimes they're called a stable URL, other times they're called a document URL, sometimes they're called a permalink. So it is this URL that is going to take you directly back to this page. It's going to be more reliable than taking the URL up in the address bar. So if you have this document URL, you do want to include that. And that's your complete citation. Except, remember, you have to go do your hanging indent. And a reminder how I do that is I go to the beginning of the second line, press enter to break up that line, and then I press tab and tab it over 1/2 inch, and that gives me that hanging indent. Hanging indents are required for every citation, no matter what your source you're looking at, so make sure you're adding those. So basic journal info citation, journal article, pretty simple, of authors, date, article title, journal title, volume, issue, page numbers, and then a stable URL. So let's look at another one really quick. This is one coming out of the Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences, and this is one students might struggle with because you're getting the journal title here, but you're also getting this, the New York Academy of Sciences, which is also the website name. So how are you knowing this is a journal article, not just a website? Well, if you're looking at it over here, you're getting that volume, that issue, date, and page numbers. That's where you're knowing you're seeing a journal and you need to cite this as a journal article, not just a website. So do look around for what you're looking to make sure what you're looking at is a journal article, not just a website if you're unsure of it. Once again, if you're seeing a PDF download, that's not going to be cited as just a website. That is an article. And so when in doubt, if you are unsure of what the title of the journal or the article is, you're confused of the actual website page, look at the PDF. It's going to tell you this right up at the top. Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences, Marrow was the special edition. You do not need this letter to the editor. That is a section heading, not the title itself. So what you're looking at here is effectiveness of calcium, etc. as the article title. Michael Pazinius is your author. So let us copy and paste that. If I can copy and paste. Or, thrilling video of your professor trying to highlight something. And keep in the same thing. And then we are going to leave out that Michael, period M. So Michael is the first name. Pazinius is the second, is the last name. So that's what's going to come first. Article title or date comes next. So sorry, date comes next. And so this is one where you are not seeing the date right up at the top. If you don't see that info of volume and issue and page numbers up here at the top, typically it's down here in the footer. And so you're getting that Annals, New York Academy of Sciences. Sometimes science journals abbreviate their names. You don't want to do that for APA. You want to get the complete name. 1433, volume 2018, copyright 2018. So that is your date, period. Article title comes next, for which we are going to not do that. Sorry. Okay, effectiveness of calcium and vitamin D supplementation and osteoporosis. I can remember that. Right? That's calcium and vitamin D. Okay. Sorry, make sure you are getting your things correct. So drag and drop that where it actually goes. You do want to make sure you're getting students sometimes occasionally when they're typing things out by hand to make mistakes like I just did, that they invert information. That's a bad error. You need things as they are published. Next, we are looking at that Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences as your journal title. And so this is one that if you were copying and pasting that, you do not want to keep it as this, to where it's all in caps. New York would be capitalized, but not completely in all caps. Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences. Following it by a comma, and remember, journal titles are italicized. And give me that volume and issue and year, and so that is not up at the top. That is down here, so you're getting this 1433. This isn't giving you an issue number at this page. So if you're not seeing that, sometimes going back to the original one, you did see it was issue 1433, issue 1. Sometimes you don't see that on the full PDF, but come after that. And we do need that italicized, so remember that. And then it was pages 5 through 6, period. And if you have a DOI link, which you do have here, make sure you are copying and pasting that. Right click, copy. I copy and paste for easy use because it's sometimes faster when I'm doing this on my computer. If you want to type things out, go right ahead. Go back, add your hanging indent, and you are correct. And that is the complete citation again. And so those are kind of the differences in between some of your citations. We're going to talk a little bit about newspapers in the next one, in the next video that we got.